Hey there, welcome. So, have you ever felt like the world is just getting noisier? Like all our big conversations get bogged down in this kind of, intellectual mud? Well, today we're going to dig into a framework that's designed to slice right through that noise. It's a map for clear thinking, a way to get some real discernment in an age that feels built on confusion. And it all starts with the problem that this next quote just captures perfectly. This really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Today, we are drowning in information, but starving for ontology. Think about it. We have more facts, more data, more hot takes flying at us than at any point in history. But what's missing is the ontology, the structure, the depth, the basic coherence to make any sense of it all.
And I'm sure this feels familiar to you. You're trying to have a serious discussion, right? And suddenly, hard scientific facts are being debated like they're just personal opinions, while someone's deep philosophical beliefs are being thrown around as if they're provable data. Everything just gets mashed together into this confusing, goopy mud. So first things first, let's really diagnose this problem. If we're going to find our way out of the mud, we have to understand what it's made of and, why it's so darned easy to get stuck in it in the first place.
This is such a brilliant way to put it. We're building these massive, complex arguments, these incredible skyscrapers of information, but we're doing it on foundations of sand. If the fundamental categories of our thinking are all jumbled up, the entire structure is just going to be wobbly and unstable.
Okay, but what if there was a way to check those foundations? What if we had a map to help us navigate this whole confusing landscape? Well, that's exactly where this proposed solution comes in. It's a framework called Ideological Separation Theory. So, at its core, this theory argues that our biggest issue is something called ontological overlap. Now, that sounds super academic, I know, but it's actually a pretty simple idea. It just means we're mistakenly treating fundamentally different kinds of ideas, like a scientific fact and a moral value, as if they're the same thing. And this framework gives us a way to finally untangle them.
So how do we actually do that untangling? Well, the theory gives us a really practical toolkit. It's got 3 distinct tools, each designed for a very different job. And honestly, getting a handle on this toolkit is the key to all of this.
First up in our toolkit, we've got philosophy. Think of it as our compass. Its job isn't to give us concrete answers, but to set our direction. It operates in the realm of inquiry, always asking those big foundational why questions. Why is justice important? Why should we even care about truth? It helps us navigate the unmeasurable world of meaning and value. Okay, next up is science, and this is our ruler. It operates in the realm of observation. See, science doesn't ask why something is good or bad. It asks how it works. It deals only with the stuff we can measure, repeat, and test. How does this policy actually affect the economy? How does this medication affect the body? It's all about the how. And finally, we get to theory, which is our blueprint. This is the crucial bridge that connects our compass and our ruler. A theory takes a big why question from philosophy and translates it into a testable what-if model. It creates the structure that allows our abstract values and our concrete data to actually talk to each other in a logical way. So let's put it all together. You've got the compass of philosophy asking why, you've got the ruler of science asking how, and then you have the blueprint of theory creating the model that connects the two. The most important thing to get here is that each tool has a very specific job. You wouldn't use a compass to measure a piece of wood, right? And you definitely can't use a ruler to find magnetic north. Now, what happens when we forget this? What happens when we start using the wrong tool for the job? Well, that's exactly where all the confusion starts. The theory calls this ontological trespassing, when one way of thinking invades another one's territory. This chart makes the problem so clear. On one side, you have healthy questions, where the right tool is being used for the right job. But on the other side, you get these category errors. Look at that one. Can we scientifically prove this policy is morally good? It's a nonsensical question. It's like trying to measure love with a ruler or weigh the color blue. You're just using the completely wrong tool for the task.
And this ontological trespassing creates what the theory calls intellectual counterfeits. You end up with pseudoscience, where a why question is dressed up to look like a how answer. Or you get scientism, where the how tool gets arrogant and claims it can answer every single why question out there. These things look like real arguments, but they're fakes, built on a fundamental, flawed foundation.
Okay, so the answer is to separate these tools. But, and this is probably the most important and subtle point of the whole framework, separation does not mean division. This isn't about building giant walls between these ways of thinking.
In fact, as we're about to see, it's actually the very first step toward building a much stronger, more integrated understanding of the world.
This quote right here gets to the central paradox of the whole theory. We all want a unified, coherent worldview, don't we? But the argument here is that the only path to a true, healthy integration is to first clearly distinguish the parts. You have to know what something is before you can connect it to something else in a meaningful way. So the process really works in 3 steps. We start in chaos, that's the ontological overlap, where everything is just mashed together. Then we practice what the theory calls epistemic hygiene. I love that phrase. We clean up our thinking by separating out the domains. And the result isn't fragmentation, not at all. It leads to step 3, a higher-order coherence, a structured, clear dialogue where each part can finally contribute what it's good at.
So let me be perfectly clear here. The goal is not to isolate science from philosophy. The goal is to define their roles so they can have a smarter, more productive conversation. When philosophy is allowed to be philosophy and science is allowed to be science, they can actually inform each other without accidentally corrupting each other. It's about creating clean interfaces, not building walls.
And really, that brings us to the end. The real power of a map like this is using it in your own life. So I'll leave you with this question. Think about the conversations you have, at work, with your family, online. Where are you stuck in that intellectual mud? And could untangling the why, the how, and the what if be the first step you take toward real, lasting clarity and discernment?